So for today's video, we're going to go over integer operations and we're going to do some examples of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I want to give you 6 example problems of each one. So we're going to have 6 for addition, 6 for subtraction, 6 for multiplication, 6 for division. So that way you have some extra practice. We'll start with addition first. And so I'm going to write out all 6 of the problems first, and then we'll go ahead and solve them. So that way you can solve them on your own first, and then if you want to look at the video afterwards, you can see if you got them right or not. Or you can just follow along. Either way it works. I'm not picky at all. So we'll start with 5 plus negative 3. We're then going to have negative 3 plus negative 3. We will have negative 6 plus 2. I'm going to move down a bit. Our next free problems are going to be negative 9 plus 3, 13 plus negative 12. And then the next one will be 21 plus negative 17. Okay, so this is going to give us quite a bit of examples to work with. We'll start off easy and then we'll get a little bit harder. So starting with 5 plus negative 3. What we remembered from last time is we can use a number line to help solve these solutions out if you have addition, especially if they're of different signs. So we'll use a number line. I'm going to start off in green. Actually, let me add the equal sign to these, so that way I know I'm solving a problem. And then I'll start off in green. So I'll put my number line over on the far right here. I'll start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And so what we're going to do is we start off by counting out 5 spots, which is the first number, and then we move back 3 spots, which is the second number. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And our answer is 2. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next problem. The next problem is negative 3 plus negative 3. Now, there's a couple of things we can do with this one. One is we can use another number line, which I'll demo to you really quickly. So I would start with 0 on this side and I would work my way back. So we would have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, and then if I have just a little bit more room, negative 6. Okay. We start off by going out 3 spots. So we'll go to negative 3 first, which brings us to, let me use another number here, this spot. And then now we need to count an additional negative 3 spots. So that would bring us out 1, 2, 3 to negative 6. Now another way you can solve this problem, if you've already thinking you might catch a hint, is that negative 3 plus negative 3, both of them are negative. So we could simply just remove the sign and say, well, what's 3 plus 3, which is 6, and then add the negative number back. Okay? So if you want to do that way, you can do it, and you'll still get negative 6. Now, on to the next problem. It's negative 6 plus 2. Now, for negative 6 plus 2, we already have a number line here from our previous problem, and I'm just going to blatantly reuse it. If we start off at negative 6, and let me go ahead and erase what I have from the previous one at the top, and then I'll go ahead and add back the little piece that I lost. We start off at negative 6, and then we're going to go forward 2 spots. So we'll go 1, 2, and we get negative 4. Yep, and there we go. Now, let me move down to the next free problems. We have negative 9 plus free. I'll add the equal sign because I forgot to do that. Negative 9 plus free. Well, if we think about this, we can write a number line, or we can kind of think it in our head. We go to negative 9, and then we go back 3 spots. So if we think, okay, we're at negative 9, now we go back 3 spots. So that would be negative 8, negative 7, negative 6. Now if you still want to use the number line, you can just write it out. I'm not going to write it out because I don't really have the space for it, and I'm also trying to teach you guys some really good skills. So eventually we will have to get off using the number line, and this will just become secondhand nature to us. But if you want to write out the number line, you can. You can go out negative 9 spots and then go plus 3, and you'll get negative 6. The next problem is 13 plus negative 12. And one thing I notice here is there's a little trick you can do. 13 is positive, negative 12 is negative, and so we have 13 positive numbers, or I guess if we wanted to count these out as objects, we would have 13 positive objects and 12 negative objects. Each positive object and each negative object will cancel out. We're left with one positive object because we have one more from the 13. And so then we're left with 1. Again, if you want to use the number line, you can. I'm just telling you it's going to take longer, and eventually you're not going to have space to use a number line all the time, but this way you can at least learn some nice tricks as we go along doing this. Again, 21 plus negative 17. If we think about it as in terms of objects, we have 21 positive objects, 17 negative objects. We're going to be left with the difference between the two of these. So 17 to 21, that's 4. And there we go, it's 4. I mean, you can use the number line if you want to, you don't have to. You can also think about it as the difference of the two numbers. That works only if they have the opposite sign. If they have the same sign, then you have to add them accordingly and make it negative. The number line will always work. The problem with it is it just takes up a lot of space. Okay, and that's addition. So now we'll move on to subtraction. I'm going to have 6 subtraction problems that we're going to work with. And what we're going to realize is that all of these subtraction problems are going to turn into addition problems via what we learned in the previous video, that we're going to use a trick to change the subtraction sign to addition and then change the sign of the second number. So this is really more addition practice, but it's in the form of subtraction. So I'm going to give you 6 problems here. We're going to have 3 minus 2. We're going to have 5 minus negative 4. We're going to have 3 minus 7. I'm going to scroll down a bit. We're going to have 13 minus 10. We're going to have 9 minus 10. And then we're going to have negative 12 minus negative 17. And let me make sure I add in all the equal signs. Okay. So again, this is going to be subtraction. We're going to use a trick where we're going to change the operation from subtraction to addition and then change the sign of the second number. I'll show it to you here. So 3 minus 2 can be rewritten as 3 plus negative 2. And that's the trick we do. We changed the operation, which is subtraction, to addition, And then we change the sign of the second number. This 2 was originally positive, and it's now negative. And so then free plus negative 2 will be 1. You can use a number line if you want. I'm not going to. Eventually, you're going to pick these up secondhand or second nature for you. So we'll do the same thing for 5 minus negative 4. I'm going to rewrite it. 5 minus negative 4. And then using our fancy-dancy trick, we're going to change the subtraction to addition, and then change the sign of the second number. So this becomes positive. And so then we see that this is a really nice number. It's 5 plus 4, which is just 9. Okay. Doing the same thing for free minus 7 now. We see that's free minus 7. We're going to do the same trick. I'll do it in green like I've been doing. Change the subtraction to addition, and then change the sign of the second number. So now it's free plus negative 7, and this will come out to be negative 4. Okay? Because, again, you can use a number line if you want to, or since they're the opposite sign, one is positive, one is negative, you can take the difference between the two. What's the difference between 7 and free? It's 4. Which one is bigger? The 7 is bigger. It has more negative numbers, so this becomes negative 4. And so now we'll do 13 minus 10. And so here we're going to change the sign to addition, change this to subtraction, change that to a negative number. And so 13 plus negative 10 is just going to be free. And we're going to have 2 more to do. 9 minus 10, this is going to be 9 minus 10. Change the sign to addition, make this a negative, and so now we have 9 plus negative 10, which becomes negative 1. All right. Now, the last one here is kind of tricky, but it's meant to be kind of tricky. We will have negative 12 minus negative 17. We're going to use our fancy-dancy trick. We're going to make this addition, make this addition, make it a positive. And so now we have negative 12 plus positive 17, and this comes out to be 5. Again, what's the difference between 17 and 12? It's 5. Which one is bigger? The 17 is, so this is now positive 5. Okay, and that takes care of subtraction. Next, we're going to move on to multiplication. So for multiplication, we're going to have 6 problems here. And we will start with free times negative 2. We will have negative 4 times negative 3. We will have negative 7 times 5. We will have 10 times negative 3. Then I'm going to add a couple more here. We will have negative 12 times negative 6. And then we will have negative 18 times 0. Add back my equal sign for each of these. Okay. Now, from our last video, if you didn't watch the video on integer operations, you should watch the video on integer operations. But we determined that in multiplication there are 4 rules. And the summary of those 4 rules is that if you're multiplying a positive and a positive, it's a positive. If you're multiplying a negative and a negative, it's a positive. If you're multiplying a positive and a negative, it's a negative. And if you're multiplying a negative times a positive, it's a negative. So, to solve each of these problems, where I will choose a different color, I'm going to choose red this time. We're going to get free times negative 2. The way I like to solve these is, first off, what is free times 2? That's 6. And then what's the sign? Well, a positive times a negative is a negative. So this becomes negative 6. Negative 4 times negative 3, well, what's 4 times 3? That's 12. And then a negative times a negative is a positive. So it's positive 12. Negative 7 times 5. So again, 7 times 5, what's that? That is 35. And then a negative times a positive is a negative, so this is a negative. 10 times negative 3. Okay, so 10 times 3 is 30. And then a positive times a negative is a negative. Okay. Next two on the list. Negative 12 times negative 6. Oy, that's a big one. So first off, what's 12 times 6? That's 72. And then a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's positive 72. All right. The last question here. Negative 18 times 0. Some of you probably already know the answer to this. Anything times 0 is 0. So this answer is 0. It doesn't matter. Also, 0 cannot be positive or negative. It's just 0. Why is that? Well, you're saying how many groups, basically you're saying how many zeros. Actually, sorry, I was actually thinking about this as division. So if you think about it as multiplication, you're saying, let's take 0 and add it to itself 18 times. So you would have 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, and eventually you get 0. Additionally, if this was flipped, you can also have 0 times negative 18, which means let's take negative 18 0 times. And since you take it 0 times, that just leaves you to be 0. All right. Now on to what I was already thinking about. We'll do division. All right. So for division, I'm also going to give you 6 problems. I'm going to go to white now. We will have 54 divided by negative 9. We will have 27 divided by negative 3. We will have negative 27 divided by negative 3. And then the last few problems here, we will have negative 36 divided by 12. And then we will have 72 divided by 9. Actually, negative 9, sorry. And then we will have negative 108 divided by negative 12. And for this time, I think I'm going to switch. Let's use the orange. I'm going to make the equal sign this orange color. So that way it stands out just a little bit more. All right. So, like we learned in the last video, again for division we have 4 rules, and in fact they're actually the same as the multiplication rules. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. A positive divided by a negative is negative. A negative divided by a positive is negative. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So, first off, we're first going to figure out what the number is, and then we'll figure out the sign afterwards. 54 divided by 9, well, that's 6. And then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 27 divided by negative 3, well, 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Negative 27 divided by negative 3, well, we already know the number. That's 9. And then a negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, next one's negative 36 divided by 12. So 36 divided by 12 is 3. And then a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 72 divided by negative 9. 72 divided by 9 is 8. Remember, 8 times 9 gets you 72. And then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. All right, 108 divided by, negative 108 divided by negative 12. Well, remember, 12 times 10 is 120. So if we take 1 less 12, and we do 12 times 9, we get 108. So 108 divided by negative 12 is 9. And then a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's positive 9. And that will do it for the examples of integer operations. If you have questions, you can feel free to leave a comment. Also, you can look at the previous video on how to do integer operations.